Go for it.
Nice, man.
Awesome. Oh, let me fix this. See, look. This is what happens when you do it live. You just, get out of the shot all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Today I got Kyle Martin, and we haven't met before.
No, sir.
Is that your full-time thing?
No, I have a regular job.
No, I mean music thing.
yeah, it is.
And how long you been with him?
Well, I've known Will for many years.
You guys get hooked up.
Well, we actually met through some mutual friends,
Mm-hmm.
and you quickly realize one plays guitar, the other plays guitar.
Right.
Started jamming in the basement.
Yeah.
With another friend who played drums, and Will has always. I mean, he went to school for music. I didn't. So he was always very involved in making his own stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just really flattered when he asked me if I wanted to be a guitar player in his band.
Yeah, dude, so I watched some of the Amazing Bill videos, and one of the things that I saw about your playing, which I really, really liked, is that, well, one, it's cool to, see, people around town doing some original stuff, which is why I wanted you to come and do it. But one of the things I really liked about your playing is I noticed that you were doing a lot of, good, like, high on the guitar comping parts.
Yeah.
That really worked, when he was playing keys, and it really seemed like, when you first came in here, you were like, man, I really don't know much about music, but it seems very musical.
Oh, well, I
is the
appreciate
point
that,
I'm
man.
trying to make. So, what's your background playing? Like, what do you,
Sure. So I started playing when I was like 13.
Yeah.
My dad always played for my little brother and I when we were little.
Yeah. And are you from this area?
No, I'm actually from a little northwest of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
I moved down here with my wife probably about six years ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you're
Right. So yeah, started when I was like 13. I took lessons for a few years, but I just kind of after that just kind of found my own way. You can see from the SG and maybe you're a little from my playing style. My first ever real album was Highway to Hell.
Yeah.
So I
awesome.
got hooked on Angus.
Yeah.
And went from there, and they're way more bluesy than most people would give them credit for. So that's how I got into.
Dude, that's one of my favorite things about Angus Young is that it's so bluesy. He's one of my all-time favorite guitar players.
Yeah, it's such a good
Dude.
riff.
And you know what? Who was I talking with about this not that long ago? But the conversation came up as like, who do you think is probably the biggest, most, like the biggest guitar player in the biggest band in the world? And I'm trying to think to myself, like, in every band except AC/DC, I would say that the front person is the number one reason why people come.
Sure.
But as far as stadium bands go, everyone
No
comes
doubt.
to see Angus.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And
No
so,
doubt.
like, that's what's so great about his playing is that, I think that it's easy to, give a band like that crap because it's 1-4-5 stuff, it's simple. But, like, everything he does is something that, like, gets stuck in your head forever.
Yep. And it's there's nothing really virtuosic about his playing. Like, there's certainly
The energy is.
technically better players out there, but yes, exactly. They are so tight. There's no, and obviously Malcolm, R.I.P.
Yeah.
There's no transients like in the rhythm playing. It's like very tight and focused.
Dude, if he's not the best rhythm player ever, I mean, he's number two.
He's up there for sure.
He's, in my opinion, like he's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge AC/DC fan.
Yeah, same.
And you kind of nailed not just the guitar, but you really kind of nailed the sound.
I try.
too.
I mean, I don't have my Marshall stack here with me today, but I mean, it's pretty close.
And that's appreciated. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Sure.
So you have, with the exception of the brown box and the guitar, like I've never heard or played or seen any of the other stuff that you have here.
Sure. Yeah.
So why don't we start with the guitar though? So what
Sure.
year is that? It's obviously an SG. What's the story behind that thing?
Sure. So I actually I've had this guitar not terribly long, but I haven't touched any of my other guitars except for the blue tele behind me.
I'm excited to get to that.
Hell yeah. I got this maybe not even 3 months ago at this point. It's a 2008 61 custom shop reissue.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say how much I paid for it, but it was better than you would normally pay for this kind of guitar. So the previous owner already had some, I believe these are WCR aftermarket pickups. They're called Goodwoods. They're made with Alnico 2 magnets. So although the specs on the output are a little higher than I would normally like, the Alnico 2 magnets keep it warm.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too bitey. So I haven't changed anything on the guitar since I got it. Aftermarket wiring in there too with the 50s wiring. I'm all about that because I love volume knob playing. So like the 50s wiring keeps the treble when you turn it down doesn't get muddy.
Keeps it reasonable.
For sure. And an interesting thing about this guitar is the lyre. Like this is.
I've never played one of those.
And you know what? You're not missing terribly much because it's actually pretty well established that it's not a good design, and it's not. I actually glued.
That's hilarious.
Mine is glued back here, so I mean, if you really wanted to move it, you could, but it's pretty stable. I do use it occasionally. It's nice. It's subtle, but you can't.
But that's it.
Or it'll just go totally out of tune. I mean, I can nurse it just because I'm used to playing the guitar.
Right.
Just for little subtle effects like that. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And like we were discussing before we went live, this is got Les Paul on the cover here, and that's because in the first 2 years, if you're not familiar, the first 2 years that the SG was made, it was called the Les Paul.
I was not familiar.
Yeah, so then it's because actually what are now the most valuable Les Pauls, the 58s and the 59s, those years back in the day, sales were tanking.
Hmm.
And so they're like, oh, we need something new and crazy. So they made this guitar, and they called it the Les Paul. The Les Paul had nothing to do with the design of the guitar.
Did they also make actual Les Pauls at the same time, though?
For
and
sure.
still called those Les Paul?
Yeah, they did.
So this was just like
Oh,
a
wait,
completely
you know what?
different guitar with the same
I'll
name?
be honest, I think in 61 and 62, they were mainly just producing these because they needed something that they thought would grab the market again. Because, again, the guitars that are, like, worth $250,000 today,
Yeah.
the sales were not good back in 58 and 59. So Les Paul, when he saw the finished product, I guess he let it sit for a year, but he was like, I don't, that shit's ugly, take my name off. take my name off that guitar. So then it became the SG, which stands for solid guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for the reissue, for, you know, those
I always thought it was
purposes,
super guitar.
well, it is, for sure.
Yeah,
I love them.
I mean, feel free to play, make some sounds.
Yeah, well, I was just, we can talk a little more about this amp, which I
Okay, let's talk about the Tone Master.
Sure.
I mean, do me a favor, without me playing, just
Okay.
rip on it for a second.
Just
Let
rip on
everybody let everybody
All
hear
right,
it
I'm gonna-
because this thing sounds outstanding. I hope that this comes through.
We're gonna go, I have everything cranked, there's, real quick, I'll explain just briefly before we play. There is, 2 channels on this amp.
Okay.
I have them, you can't see it because the plate's back here, but I have them jumped. So I have one patch cable going from channel 1 to channel 2, and then I'm plugged into the first input of channel 1. So it gives it a thicker sound. Like, I'll give you an example.
So literally, you're into channel 1, and then you're also into channel 2, so both at the same time.
Correct. You might be familiar with, like, on the old Marshalls, that was like an old trick they
Yeah.
would jumper the 2 channels
Just
and
give it
give
a
you a
little
much
beat,
fatter
yeah.
sound. I'll see if I can give you like an example. So here's just channel 1 turned up a little more than halfway. Okay, here's channel 2 turned up just a little over halfway. Yeah, it's like it's bitey, it's woody at the same time.
Yeah.
It's so that's about 2 o'clock all the way.
Yeah. Dude, that's brutal, man.
Yeah, it's.
Dude, you mind if I try it?
Oh, please, please. I would love for you to. Do you want your guitar, or do you want to try this guy?
No, I'll try yours if you don't mind.
Not at all, dude. Here, let's switch.
All right, we'll just maybe this will be a new theme of the show. Everybody
Yeah.
just tries to. This is heavier than I thought it would be.
And you know what? That's an important point I forgot to mention. That is the heaviest SG I've ever played.
I mean,
It's 8.5 pounds. Normally SGs are about
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Normally SGs they're known for being lightweight.
Yeah.
And I think I read about it because that was honestly the only disappointing thing about that guitar when I got it. I was like, oh, it's just heavy as shit. Like
That's why it says Les Paul.
I want a nice like guitar, but I read up and apparently you can see that one big line going from like the neck pickup. There's like a black line in the grain. Yeah, apparently if the wood has a lot of mineral deposits in it, it makes it much heavier. So that just happened to get made from a chunk of wood that had a lot of mineral deposits in it.
Wow. That is very interesting. Screams. Yeah,
Dude,
dude.
that sounds awesome.
Dude.
It's so crazy how different the same gear sounds in different hands.
Yeah, dude, I mean, this is. Yeah, it's fucking cool. humbug.
All right, okay.
Keep going. This thing's great, dude. What do you think about that? Have you ever played one of those?
I've actually never. I've maybe once picked one up, but I've never plugged one in.
What do you think? And be honest. I mean, you can hate it.
I love it.
Do you?
Yes, I like how light it is.
What I like is that you didn't realize you were on the coil.
Dude, I had
pack.
no idea, and I thought it was like maybe just a little quieter, but also I had cranked this when you were asking me to demo it, so
Yeah.
I honestly, it felt a little thin to me, but then when you told me that, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. It's a single coil.
Yeah. So. I love that guitar. That thing's a beast. But dude, this is. I've honestly never owned an SG, and I've never really played one. This one is cool, man.
I'm glad you
They're
like it.
very. It really wants you to rip on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's just something about the entire neck being above the body
Sure.
that just like, it just wants you to just move around a lot.
Sure,
It's,
and-
it's very accessible.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I love it too. Apart from that being distinctively heavy for an SG, the neck is also not the thinnest in the world. It's not fat by any means, but SGs are also known for having like a super slim neck. That one is comfortable to me. Although I have pretty small hands, I don't like a super slim neck. And
Yeah.
it really fits me just right.
This thing's a beast, dude.
Yeah, thank you so much, dude.
Well, why don't we? Yeah, don't worry about that. I know that the wireless gets the.
Oh yeah.
So why don't we talk about your so more about the amp,
Sure.
where you found it,
Sure thing.
your signal chain,
Mm-hmm.
and then let's go into the
Yeah,
tele.
we'll get
you
in
got
that
back
tele
there.
for sure. Okay, so
So right off, let's do this. So you use a brown box.
yes, yeah.
You have to with these vintage style amps.
Right.
Like
So this is Brown Box by
you're on
RX.
114.
Yeah, so this, if you look on the, again, I'll just describe it because the plate's back here, but these old amps, like old Fenders were made to run at 117 watts. These were actually made to run at 115. So if you plug in to just a normal studio wall outlet, you're likely running at least 120.
Now, this actually brings up a good question. So, when the amps were made, was wall power 115? Like,
You know what, I think it was because...
Or did they just assume everybody would have power conditioners? Because that seems...
Yeah, back in the day, the power, just less voltage was coming out of the walls. And I know that a good point of reference is my own house was made in like 1962. And if I plug directly in it, it's pretty much at around 116, 117. These were made to run at slightly lower voltages. So this company, it's Brown Box by something RX. I feel bad, I can't remember the name of the company, but they've made this product that allows you to plug into a vintage amp and have the correct voltage that it was made for. So like you can adjust.
And you can really hear the difference.
Oh, for sure. Like if you were to reduce the voltage down, it's called Brown Box because Eddie Van Halen, when he made the first Van Halen album, he used a Variac machine, which is a just as useful, arguably less safe way to lower the voltage on an amp without blowing it up. So if you reduce the voltage all the way down,
so that's at like 107, 108.
Right, coming down from like 116, it's a much more compressed. And then if you bypass it, it's
back up to 120 or whatever.
Right. Well, here, see,
my house at 117.
Yeah, it is, which is great if you play Fender amps, vintage Fender amps. Versus.
Yeah, you can actually hear it.
Yeah. Do this just another quick. I'm not sure.
You just sold me on that thing.
I'm not sure if it's coming through like on the mic, but you can feel the difference for sure.
Yeah, you can feel the air moving.
Mm-hmm.
There's more air, literally moving.
Yeah, it's it's indispensable for me when I'm using this.
How much are these?
I think they retail for $350. I got mine used for a little less.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they're on Reverb, brand new, or you might be able to find one used. I mean they're pretty popular, so it's not an item that you'll see come up used too often because it's the kind of thing where like you're getting it because you need it.
Right, and then you never get rid of it because you play those style amps.
So this, that's the Brown Box. This amp is a 19. It's between a 59 and a 60. The codes actually date to 60, but you know how years overlap when they use parts. So it's between a 59 and a 60. Tone Master, which is actually a Magnatone in truth. That Magnatone sort of farmed out their amps to different companies. Same exact amp. Like this is a Tone Master Troubadour 214. Same exact amp as a Magnatone Troubadour 213. Just with the words Tone Master on it. Which, have you ever heard of Phil X by chance?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I saw him in NAMM this year.
Awesome. So amazing player. He's playing with Bon Jovi right now. I believe.
He's awesome.
Fantastic. Very inspiring guy. He's mainly the reason because I loved the tone he was getting, and I was like, what the hell is he playing out of? And then, sure enough, if you watch enough of his videos, we'll talk about this amp, which is his had a few differences on the back compared to mine, but again, same circuit. I just love the sound, and I was telling you before we began, I've been waiting for one of these to pop up on Reverb for over a year, and I jumped on it when I found it. I recently had it serviced by Nick Cage, who's also Baltimore County based. Fantastic guy, can't recommend him enough. Super nice, super knowledgeable. I wish I should have brought it up on my phone. I had a picture of this grill cloth before he replaced it. The previous owner had a bed sheet and a window screen for the grill cloth. And like if you crank the amp, you could see the sheet.
That's
from
great.
The air. So this really gave it a facelift, and also props to Will, the singer for Amazing Bill, for convincing me to do that. Because I was like, no man, I like the way it looks. He's like, I don't know, dude. I think it'll look pretty cool if you get that grill.
You sound good, but I don't know about that sheet, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it came out great, and I also had Nick, because I do live in a house where I have to be conscious of noise sometimes. I had him install an attenuator.
Yeah.
So he just put two cables, one from the amp to the speaker, and then we can put the attenuator in between. So again, just straight through the amp. Here's cranked. And if we take it, this is halfway, and this is, it's at this point it's getting pretty squishy. But hey, for like if you're just
Yeah.
jamming it
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
works.
useful. Yeah, I mean, you know, I became very disenchanted with attenuators for a while, but sometimes you just need to have one for
Yeah. Yeah, I used to have, you know, a while ago, you know, a Marshall, and I used to have one of the power brakes. But every time I used it, I just felt like it was such a big tone suck.
Sure, it's like you're putting a pillow over the
Yeah, it just I hate it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's not like it's something I didn't want to have to do it, but I was like, I'm being realistic. If I want to get like,
It's hard to be reasonable for a guitar player, isn't
it
it?
is for sure. If I want to get like decent cranked tones in my house and like still be able to enjoy it, it's a necessity. And
Right.
he actually made me a tiny little box that I have Velcroed in the back. That it's just literally an AB. You can just plug it in and so there's no it just basically going from the amp to the speaker. It's just bypassed.
Yeah.
So I have that as well, but I normally just keep the attenuator plugged in because when it's all the way off, it's bypassed.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not affecting the tone. And then it's there if you want to just take it down a little.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna take a picture of all this
Sure.
and put it on Instagram so you guys can see. But why don't you kind of talk us through your board now?
Sure.
Because
sure.
like you have the cleanest, coolest little board, man. So
Thank you.
obviously they're all, you know, mini
Yeah.
pedals and they're all battery and they're all. What is the brand? One
So
Control.
the brand is One Control, which is a Japanese company that Bjorn. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. You might know him better as BJF if you're familiar with Mad Professor pedals. What other?
I mean, I'm not.
No worries. So he's a pretty big name in the pedal world. Is all that's meant to say. So he partnered with this Japanese company to make this line of pedals, and they're all the same in the sense that they're all the same enclosure. Obviously, once you guys can take a look at this, you'll see that too. Great gamut of effects, and you want me to talk about?
Actually, can you just like pick it up and show
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Just because it's such a
Yeah. Definitely.
easy thing to do that with.
You're right. It's so tiny. Yeah. So it's.
Yeah.
I'm a little like OCD anyway, so I love like the concept of all the same design pedals, all battery powered, so I don't have to mess with stage power, which can just get noisy, and it's the 9 volts in these last a long time. Even the modulation and delay pedals, they
Swap
take
them,
up
like every 2 months or something.
yeah, if that. They take up much less power than typical. Like a typical delay is like 60 mA of power, which if you run it with a battery, it'll last 10 hours if you're lucky. These are less than half of that. I think they run at 27. So I don't know how Bjorn managed to do that with the design, but it allows the batteries to last way longer, so it's much less inconvenient to run them on battery.
Yeah.
So real quick, this is here, I'll kind of do it.
Yeah.
like that.
If you can do it like that,
I can.
that'd
for
be
sure.
awesome.
All right, so let's take the amp down to like maybe 11 o'clock, so you still get like a little bit of breakup. Maybe a little more than a little.
Yeah. The perfect amount.
Yes. So here I always have the reverb on just because this amp is literally volume and tone. That's all. 2 volume controls for the 2 channels.
A man after my own heart.
Dude, I love this. I like to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just spend too much time tweaking, if I have too many options to fiddle with. So
Understood.
tone is cranked, volume is wherever you want it. So
Tone's always 10.
right, yeah, tone is always 10. This is, and 6v6 amps, which is what this has, 2 6v6s. Generally, I think they're known for being just a little on the warmer side. I like a nice bitey tone,
Yeah.
so I just have the tone always cranked.
Just jacked.
Always cracked.
I like it. I like it.
So
I love it.
Here we have reverb, which I'll crank just a little so you can hear it better. You can get more subtle with it. Just a nice something at the end. You can obviously control like the decay note, and then tone, which I normally keep all the way down. It just makes the trail a little brighter. I normally just keep it all the way down because I don't like too much of the effect.
Mm-hmm.
The delay, C turquoise delay, is we'll bring it out for the telly a little
Except
more.
for the slap back.
Yeah, it's just nice little slapback effect. This is called the Blue Monger. It's kind of a cross between like a flange and a chorus, depending on where you have it. So right now I have it set for just like a nice little chorus effect. But if you crank the speed or complexity, as it's called here, it turns into more of like a Leslie.
That works well.
is probably my favorite pedal in this lineup, just because it's perfect for what I need. I love overdrive sounds that are not compressed. I like a nice raw open sounding distortion. So this is modeled after old Orange amps. And he makes other, like, you know, Plexi type, which sound amazing. It's just for my style. This is more my style of pedal. It's just a very open sort of. It's basically just boosting what this amp is already doing. So here's clean.
It's brutal, dude.
I love it. So then, lastly, I might have spoken too soon. It's a tie between these two. This is such a useful pedal. This is called the Little Green Emphaser, and it was marketed more as a treble boost, but I don't see it like that at all. It's a frequency selector with just one knob. You can go.
Frequency selector.
It is. Well, yeah, maybe
I've
selector.
never heard such
Maybe
thing.
selector was the wrong word, but you can.
You're boosting.
Yes, you're boosting, but you can choose on this knob what
on the
frequency.
single rotor.
Yeah,
side.
it's great. So here I'll demonstrate. So this is, again, it's gonna give you a little boost, but you'll see when I turn the knob, it's so useful. Check this out. So all the way counterclockwise is like full sort of, I don't want to say like a full bass boost, but it just accentuates the bass notes more. All the way the other way around, it's like a
Ice picks.
exactly. It can ice pick if you don't know what you're doing. So here's
Or if you really want to ice pick.
yeah. So here's clean. Here's all the way to the all the way down, as it were. Okay. Now I'll do all the way. I'll do the other extreme just so you can hear it. I kind of like it somewhere in the middle, but here's the other. Okay, so real quick, here is the E on all the way on counterclockwise. Here it is, all the way the other way around. So yeah, a little harsh it can be, but when you combine it with this, like here, listen, like this can get sort of muddy. When you play it with this.
Dude.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Thank you so much.
I love it. Well, I'll tell you what, man. Let's break out that telly.
For sure.
We'll play a little more and see what.
Awesome.
Dude, your rig sounds awesome.
Thank you so much, man.
I know it's my style of rig.
I
dig it.
I very much appreciate that compliment.
Yeah.
I love it too. I'm finally at a spot. I'm sure it'll pass eventually. But you know, like every once in a while, you just get to a nice settled place of like, I'm really happy with my gear. I really like my sound.
Dude. Yeah. So.
This real quick. Yeah.
What is that?
This is called a Hush pedal by Rocktron. I don't even have it engaged right now, but I didn't know what it was going to be like. So just in case, I plugged it in. So it, obviously, the point of it is to lessen noise without cutting off your frequency too badly. So when you have some buzz, or like if you have these pedals, you can turn this on, and it'll greatly reduce the buzz.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I noticed, you don't have a tuner.
You know what?
On your board.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's funny that you brought that up because I almost brought it. I do have a snark. Just in case I
almost brought it.
Just in case I was terribly out of tune. But I know I use the Polytune by TC Electronic. And I'll just, again, it's just my silly OCD thing. I just like these pedals here, and then if I'm playing a gig, I'll just have another little patch cable with the tuner right there.
On the side.
Yeah, just on the side. And the cool thing about the Polytune, real quick, is that it does have a buffer switch inside, so that if you're running long cables, you can take the one screw out of the back, flip the buffer switch, and it'll restore some of your high end. I've tried it with both. With my setup, I actually prefer without the buffer on, but it's definitely a useful thing to have.
That's neat, man.
Yeah. So I do have a tuner. I just didn't bring it with me today.
Fair enough.
We're not doing anything terribly crazy. So I'm
No.
not gonna.
All right, let's talk about that telly.
Definitely.
Ish thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, happy to talk about that.
Oh.
If you want to grab it, I can talk a little bit about it while you're just noodling around.
I can do that with pleasure.
All right.
but I want to hear you play it too.
For sure, you got it.
All right. So the first thing I noticed about this is like it's light.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
it's got a bigger neck and it's light.
Yes. So yeah, this was my, get a real job, got some money. I wanted to make my first
Adult purchase.
Yes, I wanted to design my own guitar, and I was super into country at the time. Like I say, country style guitar.
I love these knobs too.
Yes, I actually have some of those work. That sounds good, man.
You still doing the dirt?
We can keep it a little clean if you want.
Like right there.
Okay.
It's snappy, it's poppy.
Mhm.
I like it.
Thank you very
I
much.
like it a lot. Here, I'm gonna let you want to switch.
Sure thing.
I love this switching guitar thing.
Oh,
I have to
yeah.
make this a new thing.
Sure.
All right, so here I'm gonna give you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Okay.
So tell me about that guitar.
Okay, so like I mentioned, I just always had this sort of fantasy of wanting to build my own guitar, and at the time I was super into, although I claim to play nothing close to like him, is Danny Gatton.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Danny Jack.
Amazing.
I feel the same way.
Genius. So I really wanted a Telly.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, shit, there's so much to think about. There's like every spec now is up to me, and like if I could do certain things different at this point, I probably would, but I still love the guitar. Like I'll never get rid of it. So the body and the neck were made by USA Custom Guitars. They're based in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy there was who I worked with the whole time, and in those circles, they're very well known. Very.
Respect
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yes. Very respected dudes in their field. So here, just a little bit on the specs. I recently got this back from the tech at Ryan Fowler's, Steve, at Ryan Fowler's local guitar shop.
Yeah, Ryan's the man.
Yeah,
I love his shop.
love it. I'm in there all the time. So Steve, the tech there, he hooked me up with a setup on this, but I mainly gave it to him because I wanted to switch out some of the hardware I had inside, the electronics. I had initially done it with a setup that just made the guitar a little too bright.
Mm-hmm.
Even though tellies are naturally bright, I just was where my head was at
It
the
was
time.
too much.
I was like, oh, I need, I have a humbucker up here, so I'm gonna want, like a capacitor with less resistance, so it's bright enough, and it was too bright. So I I had them, basically what we're doing now is a standard telly setup with the point 047 cap in there, and then 50s wiring still, just because I love playing with the if you're not familiar, 50s wiring is just where the...
I'm not familiar.
Oh, you're not? Okay, so 50s...
No, go for it,
Oh,
dude.
yeah, so 50s wiring is just how they used to wire the guitars in the 50s. The volume, it's essentially, instead of using one of the end lugs on the pot, it's hooked, the tone goes to the middle lug, and it preserves the treble when you turn the volume down. So that one's wired the same too, but maybe if you have another guitar like that doesn't have like a treble bleed circuit or anything in it, you'll notice that when you turn the volume down on the guitar, it gets you lose treble. It just gets a little muddy.
Yeah.
So I've always like 50 style for that reason, that you can keep the
I didn't
the
even
top
know
end.
that was a thing.
Yeah, you can keep the top end. So just real quick, like here's full out. Now you hear when I turn it down, the volume gets less, but you still have the treble on the top.
Yeah.
You can still hear that high E nice and clear.
That's true.
If you try it on, especially you can tell on humbucker equipped guitars, if you try it on your PRS, and it's not just PRS, it's just how they come.
It's just how people
from
wire it.
manufactured.
Yeah.
It's just how they're wired now. You'll notice a significant bit of
Interesting.
treble gets lost when you turn it down. But with the 50s wiring, and again, if you Google 50s wiring, you could find everything.
Right.
Everything you'd want to know about it. It's just something that really works for me, and I have all my guitars wired that way, except for a Strat that I have just because it's plenty bright.
Right.
Without it just happens to work. But otherwise, all my guitars are 50s wired. These, you might be wondering about this little button.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
What is that thing?
This is a bolt from Home Depot, but it used to.
Yes.
It used to have a switch. There was a toggle here, because again, I was just so like, I want to do everything on this guitar that I'm designing myself. This pickup made by, I'm going to pronounce it correctly, Jean Bucker. It's this guy based out of Ohio named Dave Plummer. He is a one-man show. I just happened upon his stuff, but now I have several of my guitars with his pickups in them. He just makes amazing stuff. So these are both pickups that he made, and I don't know if you can see on these are actually wider than typical telly pickup holes.
You're right.
They're
Actually,
a quarter of an inch wide, and I mean, it's all in the hands and the ear. Hear what you want to, but it apparently gives it a bit more of a wider sound instead of like that telly snap.
you can
snaps
tell a
like
big
telly.
difference.
I honestly, if you blindfolded me, I don't know that I would,
Right.
but I just thought they looked cool at the very least.
Yeah, no, it does.
and I just wanted like that muscular telly sound.
I love these knobs.
Yeah.
Being able to feel that, I like that so much more than just
Yeah, for sure. That was another consideration that I made. Real quick, back to this button though. This I had these this pickup wound to be a triple tap pickup. So I had a 3-way toggle here. I had tapped, meaning different outputs.
Right.
So if the toggle was all the way down, it was a 6.5K output, which is like that's like old school telly. Like the old tellies came out, they were right around like the 6.5 range, which is why they became known for being like so like that super bright telly sound. So then I had the middle was 8.5K output wise, which is just a little bit thicker sound, and then I had all the way up was like 11.5, which so going up in numbers just basically means you're getting a thicker sound,
Right.
but also less dynamics. So if you played with like most like heavy metal high output pickups you see, they'll be up there in like the 11 to like 15K range, because for that application you're playing just super distorted. You just need that heavy
signal,
crunch, exactly, heavy signal. But they don't clean up as well, and they have less dynamics. So this wasn't my intention, but I ended up I always stayed on the 6.5 setting.
So you just put a bolt.
So yeah, I just snipped it, took it out, and put the bolts in there.
Went to
so
Home
it's
Depot, found a bolt
exactly.
to fit.
So it's just permanently on the 6.5K setting. Yeah, I always stayed on it. I thought maybe I'd want the versatility.
I like that this is flat here too.
Oh yeah. So this is another neat feature. So this is a jack. This jack I bought from Rudders, who makes aftermarket parts. Also, he did the plate here. It's actually all the hardware, the saddles and everything. That's all Rudders. But this neat jack cup can actually accommodate 90-degree cables. Typical tele jacks can't do that. So I just thought that was a nice little feature, and there's less in your way if you're sitting and playing.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice little feature, and yeah, again, the body and the neck made by USA Custom Guitars. These are stainless steel. I believe they're jumbo frets. They seem pretty.
They
big.
seem jumbo.
Yeah, they're stainless steel, which I've never been able to notice an adverse effect from stainless. I know a lot of people say they're pingy, and you get on a telly. I've never been able to.
Yeah, I mean. But if you run through frets, you got to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, and I loved the idea of having a bulletproof guitar in the sense of like as little service needed.
Yes.
And I mentioned that Steve at Ryan's did some work on it recently. He did a fantastic job. But I don't know if you're familiar with Phil Jacoby.
Yeah, I've never met him, but I know who he is.
He used to work at PRS, and then he's been doing his own thing for many years now. But he actually put this whole guitar together.
Gotcha.
So I gave him.
So it's American Custom did the body and neck,
Yeah,
and he put it together.
Exactly. USA Custom made.
USA Custom
made the bottom. No worries. They did the paint. They made the neck. It's gorgeous. I mean,
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. But so Phil actually put the whole thing together, and yeah, I've been in love
Like how
with it
there's
since
two
I got it.
brass there.
Well, dude, again, this is like me just to the nines, like just obsessing about every detail. These are brass, stainless steel, titanium, apparently for different harmonic frequencies.
You are crazy.
It's just as easy to say like that's BS, and like it may be. I'm not gonna fight you on that. But it's just at the time that's what I did. The guitar sounds great, so I'm not gonna change anything about it.
Dude, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we play one more?
Sure.
And then we'll call it a day.
All right.
Dude, I really like your sound and your gear and your whole setup.
Dude, I can't tell you how you. Hopefully you can see I convey. I'm really excited to talk about it. I really
Dude.
appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's great.
All right.
Let's do something a little different.
Okay.
How about like a
Turn up a little bit.
go for it. my day.
Dude.
That's awesome. That's just awesome. Kyle Martin, everybody.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and when we finish this, make sure you go in, drop some links so we can all find you.
For sure.
And when's your next show?
You know what? I specifically asked Will when it was so that I could plug it. We don't have anything scheduled right now. But if you go on Bandcamp or Instagram, you can find us and check out the amazing.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Take care.
Dude, that was great.
That was fun.
Dude, wasn't it fun?
Yeah.